So you're in the middle of your online lesson and students start drawing all over your shared screen, or students are sending private chats to each other in the middle of your class. We can get a handle on these misbehaviors in the online classroom by making it harder for those misbehaviors to happen in the first place. And I'm going to show you how to do that by setting up the default settings in Zoom. Hi, I'm Emily Eggers, and this is Teaching from the Couch, where we help teachers create amazing online classrooms without losing their minds. So today we're talking all about Zoom settings, kind of that background area on Zoom where the settings are default. This is what's going to happen for all of your meetings. So let's head over to the screen share and we can get started. I'm just going to show you a few things that I think are really essential in this settings menu. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to zoom.us. Once you log in there, you're going to come over here to settings. Okay, make sure you're on the meeting tab. And there's just like a few really important things that I think every teacher should know. The first is the waiting room. You should always have the waiting room enabled. This is so that kids don't come in before you're ready, or they, you don't have weird people coming in, or they can have a spot to land, or if they're coming in like before you're ready, a spot for them to wait kind of thing. A really cool aspect of the waiting room is that you can customize it. So if you go here, make sure your waiting room is turned on and say customize waiting room. Here you can edit this title area. You can add a picture, which for me, I've added my Bitmoji. And then you can add a description. And in my description, I have reminders about the online learning expectations. So they need to display their full name, that I am recording the lesson, so all images, video, and language needs to be appropriate. We're saving all the chats, so even if they're private, this is a cool aspect of Zoom. Even if they private chat from them to a friend, it'll still download to your computer at the end of the day. And then we're going to have some fun. So that is my waiting room message that they'll see as soon as they get to the waiting room and they're like sitting there waiting for class to start. That's what they'll see. The one thing about this customization is that it will apply to all of your Zoom meetings. So where it says your meeting topic, that would be the title of your Zoom meeting. So mine would be like 5th grade language arts or 6th grade language arts. So try not to make this description too specific to any single class, but make it a little bit more broad because it will be applied to all of your Zoom meetings. The next thing that is really important is to make sure you have the passcode turned on. And this is good because then you don't have any of the security issues that kind of happened in the 2019-2020 school year. Then another thing that's really cool to do is embed the passcode in the invite link. So the link that we send to students, it'll have the passcode right in it. So they actually don't ever need to type in the password. But if somebody ever does get a hold of your meeting ID, like the numbers, they can't get into the meeting without that passcode. So this way, it's a lot easier for students, a lot less clicking, a lot less typing, a lot less places where things could go wrong. So another thing that I really like to do is have the host video on automatically and the participant video on automatically. Obviously, students can turn this off when needed if they're feeling any sort of anxiety or they're having any sort of issue with having their camera on. I believe that it's totally okay for them to turn it off as long as they're participating. Once they stop participating, then that's a different story. But I'd like them to start the meeting with it on because usually they'll just leave it on. Make sure that allow participants to join before host is turned off. You do not want them starting a meeting without you. I've had this happen, and when I showed up to class, they were all watching one of my students play Minecraft. And I was like, what's going on? The student was sharing his screen and playing Minecraft, and everyone was watching. It was the best case scenario for that situation. I just can imagine all of the terrible things that could happen. So make sure that that is turned off. My school has also disabled the personal meeting ID, where this would be the same meeting ID for every Zoom meeting. And we don't want that because we want things to be more complicated for security reasons. We want every meeting to have its own meeting ID. But if you say have a recurring meeting, like your 5th grade language arts class meets every day, you can have the same meeting ID for that, but your 5th grade and your 6th grade are not going to have the same one. This is a really important one. Mute all participants when they join a meeting. You don't want to hear a kid's mom yelling at him to get on the computer and get logged in. You don't want to hear the dogs barking and stuff. And a lot of times when people join Zoom meetings, they don't realize they're unmuted. So you just hear a lot of things that you really don't need to hear. So make sure that mute all participants when they join a meeting is turned on. And the upcoming meeting reminder is actually super helpful. My coworkers always joke about how I am early to everything. And I tell them it's not because I'm good at this. It's because I have a reminder that pops up 5 minutes before. So then I just click on it and it logs me in. That's the only reason I'm early. Another great thing that you can do is add a co-host. So if you have co-hosts turned on, when you go to a meeting and you make a meeting, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can add alternative hosts as well. So alternative hosts are people who can start the meeting for you. They might be a special education teacher who's co-teaching with you, another teacher who's co-teaching. You could even have the paras start the class if you know you're going to be running late. And the co-host option is super helpful when you have other adults in your class because they get much of the same power that a host does, where they can mute people, they can use the chat, they can do all sorts of things like hosts do, but they aren't the host. And it's been amazing to have that going for my my paras in my class. The other cool thing is the polls feature. It's not super perfect, but it does the job. If you have that turned on, you can add polls either before or during a meeting, like in the middle of a meeting, you can make a poll. And I've done that before. It's a little bit clunky. There are other poll things, other poll services, other poll programs or apps that work a little bit better. But when you're in a pinch, the Zoom meeting polls works great. Another thing that you can set up is so that everyone can screen share. Make sure, obviously, you want screen sharing on and you can set it to host only, but I usually have it set to all participants because there are times I want students to show me their screen, especially when the text starts to get weird and not working. So then it's really helpful to be able to see their screen. But I do have that I am the only person who can start sharing when someone else is sharing. That way, nobody's trying to interrupt somebody else's screen share. I'm the only person who can do that. Another thing I have turned on is annotation. So students can write on a shared screen, but it saves everything. And so if they annotate on a screen and it's something inappropriate, I have evidence. And my students know this. They are fully aware of these things. I tell them all these rules and expectations up front, and I set that foundation. So they know they shouldn't be doing this. And when they do, they understand that there will be consequences for it. And obviously, this isn't going to be like a detention or anything, but they're gonna get a call home, and we're going to talk again about the expectations for our Zoom meetings. I also have the whiteboard on and being saved as well, because for the same reason, I want to keep track of everything that happens in there. Another really important thing for student differentiation is the nonverbal feedback and the meeting reactions. You really want to have those turned on so that students can talk to you and engage with you without having to speak in front of their classmates, because for a lot of students, that's really intimidating. And knowing that it's being recorded can be really scary, and they may just not want to use the chat. So if you ask, is everybody good? Does everybody understand what they're supposed to be doing? They can quick do the thumbs up reaction and they're good to go. They're still showing you they're engaged. They're still participating in class. And if you have those turned off, it's going to be a lot trickier for those students who are struggling. So those are really the essential things within this settings. There's a lot of settings that you can play with. You can do this for days. But those are really the essential ones within the Zoom settings on the back end that you want to set up first. Then any meeting you schedule after setting these settings will have those settings automatically. Obviously, you can change some of these once you get into the meeting. You can turn off the all participant screen sharing within the specific meeting, or you can turn off the annotation within the specific meeting. But what's nice is that these are going to be your defaults. Anytime you schedule a meeting, this is how it will start. This is like your template. And any Zoom meeting you schedule will already have these things in it. And that just takes another piece off your plate and makes life a little bit easier. So head on over to Zoom and get these settings set up. And let me know in the comments how it goes. And if you want to learn more about Zoom, check out this video right here.